Few topics are as divisive in modern religious discourse as homosexuality. The debate often centers on a handful of biblical passages that have become known as the clobber passages because of their use to condemn same-sex relationships. A factual analysis requires looking directly at these specific texts, understanding their historical and linguistic context, and acknowledging the different ways they are interpreted today. The primary Old Testament texts are in the book of Leviticus, part of the Holiness Code. Leviticus 18:22 states, "You shall not lie with a male as with a woman." It is an abomination. This prohibition is repeated in chapter 20, where the punishment is death. To understand these laws, we must place them in their context. The Holiness Code was a set of rules designed to make ancient Israel distinct from its Canaanite neighbors. Many of these rules concerned ritual purity and the rejection of pagan religious practices. Scholars point out that much of the Canaanite worship, particularly at their temples, involved ritual prostitution, both male and female. The prohibition in Leviticus, therefore, may have been targeted specifically at condemning these idolatrous cultic practices rather than being a blanket condemnation of all same-sex relationships, a concept that didn't exist in the ancient world in the way we understand it today. In the New Testament, the key passages come from the Apostle Paul. In Romans 1, Paul lists various sins as evidence of humanity turning away from God, including men who exchanged natural relations for those that are contrary to nature and were consumed with passion for one another. In 1 Corinthians and 1 Timothy, he includes two Greek words malakoi and arsenokoi in lists of sinners who will not inherit the kingdom of God. The interpretation of these words is at the heart of the modern debate. The traditional interpretation holds that these passages are a clear and timeless condemnation of all homosexual acts. Arsenokoi, a word Paul may have coined, is a compound of the Greek words for male and bed, likely referencing the Levitical prohibition. However, a growing number of revisionist scholars and theologians challenge this view. They argue that Paul is not condemning loving, committed, same-sex relationships, but rather exploitative and lustful practices common in the Roman world, such as pederasty relationships between men and boys and the sexual exploitation of slaves. They argue arsenokoi refers to sexual exploitation, not homosexuality itself. They interpret the unnatural relations in Romans as people going against their own personal nature in pursuit of excessive lust, not as a violation of a universal natural law. The debate hinges on whether these texts are universal, timeless prohibitions on all same-sex acts, or culturally specific condemnations of exploitative and idolatrous practices. The Bible does not have a concept of sexual orientation. It only speaks of sexual acts, and the interpretation of those acts remains a central point of conflict.